Wherever you go and whatever you do, you feel like there's always a new problem. You move out to a new place, and on your first night sleeping in the new apartment, you figure out that there's an awful amount of noise coming from the street outside, and it's impossible to shut your eyes. You finally change your workplace and you encounter toxic people, same as always. And you might even be grateful for it because you've seen worse. You mind your own business, but people around you seem to never have adopted that habit. Your brain is always on high alert and primed to find the impending doom in every situation you encounter. You calculate all the possible outcomes, yet there always seems to be an aspect you've been completely unaware of. There's always a hidden trap that you didn't see through. You face setbacks after setbacks, and you finally decide that the world has a problem with you, that there's something inherently wrong with you and how you choose to live. You start to think that no matter what you do, your life is always going to be miserable. So deep down, you have agreed that the world is against you. But today, you woke up and went outside. With your bare feet walked on the grassy, cold ground. No thorn entered your feet. The sunshine was just the right amount, and the sky was pure blue. You breathed deeply and smiled at the world and its beauty. And then you started to think to yourself, how come I think the world is against me? How come I think life is nothing but misery and unfairness? How could I have been so blind to have ignored all these sublimities? How could I call the world unfair when it's offering such immense amount of beauty every day? Am I not the one being unfair here? When did I stop living and start blaming the world for my death? The truth is, we have stopped looking at the beauty and we started to pick up on the problems, to a point that the first thing we see in an idea or situation is the problem. And this mindset almost always ties back to something that you have encountered before. It's clear that we have had some agonizing experiences earlier in life that was incurred by trusting the world and being naively positive. And after that, we somehow decided that the world is brimming with all sorts of lurking traps. So we must first see what sort of trap we are going to fall into. We must never allow ourselves to enjoy the wins because it's just a distraction from the hidden problems we are going to fall prey to. We unconsciously adopted ridiculous rules like never be so naive to think that the person who was treating you well was actually a good person. A month from now, she's probably going to stab you in the back, because that's how the world works. You don't even trust your own thoughts anymore. You keep saying to yourself, what if I'm doing the wishful thinking? What if I allow myself to be happy with the success and grow complacent or totally miss a sneaky problem that I should have solved instead of celebrating? You wipe the smile off your face because you think it makes you feel weak and naive, and before you know it, your mind has become problem-oriented. You no longer even have faith in the solution or any idea that you stumble upon. Your mind is always trapped in the vicious cycle of thinking, what if I'm simply being blind to the problems? God forbids if you feel content or happy about your life, because that's exactly when things are gonna go down the drain. You have also adopted another ludicrous rule, to always expect the worst, so that you can avoid being disappointed later. But what you can't understand is that you are disappointed all the way down to the moment you enter it. And even then, because you are entering the situation with lack of faith, you will drag all the residual feelings you had prior and rain on your own parade. So negativity has become your number one self-defense, the only thing that can save you from a naive mistake you've made a long time ago, something that you probably don't even remember the full details of now. The reality is you're being naively negative. You just can't see it. Our problem started when we first decided to view the failure and the problems as a bad thing, as something to be avoided rather than embraced. We live in fear because we think suffering is bad. We think it's bad to have a life swarming with challenges. We think it's something we need to escape from. But what if you escaped into the sufferings? A toxin is deadly until we use it to decimate a deadly beast. Then it becomes our savior. What if the horrible situation you're stuck in is priming you for destroying the biggest beast of your life? And what is so different about what's happening to you and the analogy I just mentioned? But of course, the difference might be that you are eating the toxin instead of using it for destroying the bigger threat. You're letting it get into you. Instead of using it as a tool, you're so afraid of it that you end up thinking the toxin is meant for you. No matter how irrational it might sound, you start to think the world is offering you poison to drown yourself in it and get destroyed. And when you're so afraid of it, your creative mind shuts down. So you can't even figure out how to use your situation to your advantage. And let me tell you, if you think your life is a never-ending cycle of problems, then you are extremely privileged. It means you're meant for greatness. It means that you are going against the grain. And it's funny how we read heroic stories and learn how much they suffered and how many antagonists they encountered in their lives, and we think how wonderful it is that they overcame all of that. And we kind of wish we could experience what they have experienced, the great moments of victory despite all the setbacks. But how is it that when you are in a difficulty or encountering an awful lot of antagonists in your life, you can't see it as a part of your heroic journey? Why do you see it as a curse, when it's in fact almost impossible to become a hero without facing and wrestling with big setbacks and extreme hardship? You see the hero story so wonderful from afar, but when you get close to it yourself, you start cursing at the world and plunging yourself into the depth of despair, not knowing that God is doing you a favor by not giving you the easy way out. So here's what you need to do when you think that the world is against you. The first thing and the most important mindset that you need to adopt in order to overcome it is to take it on voluntarily. Instead of seeing the challenge as an obstacle, see it as a project that you voluntarily undertook. Use the obstacle as a tool for growth, and this will not happen if you don't have the intention. In the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl compares people that went through the struggle with different mindset and how he didn't let the situation corrupt him and make him grow better and resentful. Here's a quote from the book that captures that notion perfectly. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Remember that the world will appear as you think of it. So you have the option to literally change the world by simply shifting your mindset toward the light. You have to see the light, even if it's one tiny ray of it at the far end of the dark tunnel, because that's where you're headed. But if you focus on a black dot on the white paper, the white paper will appear black as well. Keep in mind that your toughness and resilience is not going to be built unless you do what you don't like doing. So if your situation is something you don't want to deal with, then it means that you have an opportunity for growth. The greater the hardship and obstacle, the greater the story of your success will be. You must have that day in mind, the day of victory and reaching the far end of the tunnel, following that tiny ray of light all the while until you reach out to the source. Remember, there's always a way. Your effort might not be showing any results right now, but keep in mind that the dots are only going to connect looking backwards. And you have to wholeheartedly trust that the dots are going to connect in the end. So get out there and take on the suffering voluntarily, because the only way out is through.